If you're watching the replay of this from the get go, I just want to let you know is two things. Most likely, there's going to be rioting, whatever takes place. That's the sad part. And all the way up, if the ex-convict does not get elected, he's going to whine and cry all the way to January 20th and try to overturn it or stop it or whatever. And in my opinion, if I was his aide, I would tell him, look, if you lose, just walk away. Yes, you're going to be going through some trials, but if you just walk away, that looks a lot better than making up a stir because you don't win. That's his whole purpose of trying to get elected, is so he can pardon himself. That's why I've titled this live stream. Don't expect much. To my fellow Americans, don't expect much regardless of who wins this election. Because nothing's going to change for the better. Matter of fact, things are going to get worse. What degree of worse? It will remain to be seen. But like I said in my last live stream, it's going to get worse because nobody's wanting to address or recognize or talk about the serious issue in our country, which is the economy. You can hide your face. You can pretend it's not there. Just like the mannerism of a 3 or 4 year old. You can put your hands over your eyes and pretend that the scary thing is now gone. It only takes a little bit more maturity to figure you put your hands there, but the scary thing is still there. And until you dress it, it's not going to go away, and it's not going to be if you don't deal with it. But most Americans don't want to see it, don't want to know it, don't want to smell it, taste it, live in a fantasy and pretend it's not there. I voted early. I went to my son's football game Friday night, which was great, first round of the playoffs. And then that next morning, I went to the polls and I early voted because I'm back out on the road. I can't be there on election day to cast my vote on election day, so I voted early. Hi, Tammy. I dropped a link there if you want to come up here. But yes, this has to deal with America, yes. But what goes on here shapes what goes on in the world, either directly or indirectly. And yes, I got thrown out of the polling place by two old ladies. And I was respectable. Biden, hell, I don't know what he would be on trial for, but if they're going to do that, they can do all they want. They tried that once; it really didn't work out very well. I'm like, I don't care who gets thrown on trial. If there's evidence, then we got a problem. But Donald Trump is an ex-convict, mind you. He cannot vote. Just to let you know, because convicts cannot vote, and he's convicted. He just hasn't been sentenced yet because they put a delay on that because he's running for president. But if he wins, he can just pardon himself, and that's the end of it. And a big middle finger to the everybody of the United States. But there's going to be a lot of firsts in this election. This is the first time in a century that a president got elected and served two separate terms. I think the last one that did that was Teddy Roosevelt. I could be wrong, but I'm just trying to go by memory. Or we can have our first woman president. And also, if Trump wins, he'll be the first convict elected president. And that says a lot about America. It says so much that it's embarrassing. But a lot of people in the States don't travel to other countries and can care less. Well, I'm one of those who do travel to other countries and I enjoy it. And I'm sick and tired of going to other countries and being identified as American. And I hang my head in shame and said, yeah, I'm an American. But one thing that I find out almost every country I visit, they say, you're different than all the other Americans we've ever met. You're not arrogant at all. I'm like, I hope not. How you doing, Hazel? Thanks for stopping in here. You know, there are times when you do a live stream or whatever, I can't join in. You're going to cause me to wreck my truck. Yeah, I'm in here up here in Minnesota. I delivered some lingerie. I delivered some Victoria's Secret. I've been getting a lot of those loads out of Columbus, Ohio. That's where all the Victoria's Secret L brands is made. Uh, 2 weeks ago, I delivered it to North Carolina, and then I just a couple of days ago got another one of those loads and took it up here to Minnesota. I'll tell you, man, it was some good stuff. Too bad there's never any OS and D on that, or I'd be giving it away to you know the ladies here on White Tea, whoever wants them. But the deal would be, I'm going to send it to you for free, but I get to see you guys in it. Like, ooh, look at that. If you're a man and you don't like a woman in lingerie, check your pulse, or you might be gay. Yeah, I do a lot of Victoria's Secret loads out of Columbus. Whenever I'm in the area, 9 times out of 10, if it's not a Budweiser load, I'm getting lingerie out of Victoria's Secret there. All of it that is made there, it gets shipped all over the planet. It all gets made there in Columbus, Ohio. It's a big warehouse. You can get lost in it. But what I got to tell you, people, what got me thrown out of the polling facility was this: when you walk in Ohio, this is what I don't know about any other states, but when you walk in the polling facility in Ohio, the first thing you do is they got this big ledger. There's like a stack of three of them, and it's like an old computer printout with the green and white lines. You know, it's paper, and you got the holes on the side where it rolls through. One of the old, right, from the 1980s. They'll grab that and they'll say, "Can we see your driver's license?" You hand them your driver's license. It shows proof of who you are, and then they look up your name and they find your name on the ledger. The ledger is the list of names and people that are supposed to vote in that precinct that are registered voters. You just can't walk in and get a ballot and vote. It doesn't work that way. But everybody wanted to make an issue of it. I did, and they used to hand you the ballot and you'd walk in, you'd stick it in the machine. It's totally different now. They don't hand you anything. They hand you a button that says "I heart voted." I gave it to my daughter, and there was numbered 1 through 25. That's how many booths they had you to go in. Some of them had doors like you would if you went into a restroom here in North America. I'm sure in Canada is the same way. You know, you can see the top and through the bottom. It's just a door. Now most of them had curtains. I got one that had curtains, and they gave me number 7. I went in there. I voted for the county sheriff, a couple of judges, and a representative, and then the senator of Ohio. And I voted for Sherrod Brown. I know Sherrod Brown because we used to work together in the union, the UFCW. It's a labor union for the United Commercial Workers Union, local 1099 when it existed. And he got into politics and got elected senator. He's a great senator, in my opinion. And then you vote for president. And I did not see my candidate name on the list, so I guess she didn't make it, or he didn't make it to the on the ballot, which is wrong. You had the two choices. I was going to vote for Jill Stein or Cornel West. which are independents. They weren't there. I'm not going to vote for Donald Trump. So I knew I had to vote for Harris. So before I cast my vote, it was kind of quiet in the polling facility. But before I cast my vote for Harris, I went, ah, ah. I giggled a little bit and I cast my vote. And then I did it again, and this other dude, 2 booths from me, joined in with me doing that because he knew exactly what that meant. What I did was, that's what you would hear when a wrestler would come out to the ring from the 1980s in the WWF. His name was the Ugandan headhunter Kamala. It's spelled the same way, just pronounced differently. And get this, the wrestler's real name is James Harris. Weird, isn't it? I did that a couple times and I cast my vote and it went blank, and then I opened the curtain to get out. And here's this old lady looking up at me saying, "What's all that about noise about?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm just singing, man." Ah. Here comes that other kid coming out of the booth. He goes, I thought I was the only WWE fan here. I'm like, "Oh, no, that's old school." He goes, "By you doing that, I know who you just voted for." It was hilarious. And here comes another old lady. "You guys got to go. You got to leave. You got to go." You made a scene. I'm like, "Ma'am, calm down. Go back to your ledger and help those people. I'm on my way out the door anyway." Oh boy, but that was so fun. The Ugandan headhunter Kamala. Oh, Tammy, you remember him? He was dressed like that Zulu warrior from Africa. Yeah, the name is spelled the same. Kamala, it's spelled the same, just pronounced differently. Her name is Kamala Harris. The wrestler that had the gimmick of Kamala, the headhunter giant, his real name was James Harris. Are they related? Probably not. But I just pointed all that out. But today, everybody's going to be glued to the TV, their favorite source. There's OAN, Fox, you know, it's all, it's, I mean, I tell people, look, you're paying attention to that news source. Those people are paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to talk like that. They're paid. Are you being paid to support this certain candidate and preach about it? Not at all. I'm like, I'm not going to preach any candidate. And I'm like, pay me. Pay me 100 grand to talk to a lot of people like that. Yeah, James Harris was from Mississippi. His first gimmick back in the territory days in like Mid South, he was known as Sugar Bear. Yeah, he was a face, and he was a great wrestler. And he comes from a family of very modest means. They're very poor people down there. But him getting into the territories, and then they were swallowed up by the WWF. When he made it to the WWF, he lifted his family out of poverty. But he was good at what he did. And by the way, he was the first wrestler to ever body slam Andre the Giant. And when he did it, it wasn't a part of the match. It is it is predetermined. Back then, matches were predetermined, and he was to lose. But how they did it was up to them. He just saw an opportunity, and James knew he could do it. He just grabbed a hold of Andre and body slammed. Pissed Andre off. For a long time, he hated James Harris for that. And I believe it happened over in Japan. But he was the first. Everybody thought Hulk Hogan was the first to slam Andre. No, no. James Harris did it. years ago, and a lot of people didn't know about that. I dropped the link if anybody wants to come up on the panel. But I asked people my age or older, you've been voting for president since you turned 18, right? Great. Has anything changed at all for you and the working class of this country? Yeah, it's silent because they can't name a thing. I was born in 1970. Richard Big Dick Nixon was president. I don't remember him. I do remember Gerald Ford vaguely. But then when we had Carter, I really remember that. But as early as I could remember is Gerald Ford. But hell, I was a baby when Dick was president. But I'm serious. I tell people, I was born in 1970. Give me something that they did for the working class of this country, and nobody can name a damn thing. Not one thing. But see, they won't address that. They won't address the economics portion of it. You'll have one saying, I got the greatest economy. And I'm telling people, you're living in a freaking time warp. Because none of them are on either side are honest about the economy. $36 trillion in debt. That's a lot of zeros if you know what I'm talking about. They didn't even give us crumbs. When Ronald Reagan talked about trickle down economics, you had all the supporters there with their tongues hanging out, and him turned around with his pants down taking a shit on all those people. Literally. I remember that well, firsthand, too. I had two uncles and two aunts that lived in Flint. And less than a year after Reagan became president in '80, what happened was he gave GM a big tax cut to move those jobs to China, Beijing, China. AC Sparkplug, GM, they destroyed Flint overnight. And he gave them a big tax cut that, yes, the American people will have to pay for because moving a company is expensive. So we paid for them to move those good paying jobs over there so that them people can profit more. Ronald Reagan being a great president? No, he wasn't. He was just a puppet. And a lot of the only one great thing that Ronald Reagan did was come out with the Grace Commission report. Had Peter Grace look into where our tax money goes. That was about the only good thing he did. But I'm using the title of this, what I titled this live stream, what they say over in the Philippines. Don't expect much. Me, I don't expect a damn thing. Nothing's going to change. If Kamala Harris becomes president, yes, we'll probably eventually the women will get their rights to decide if they want to have a child or not. Me, I could care less. I don't care less what people do in their bedroom or with their lives. It's their choice. This is a free country. I don't believe in controlling other people. If they want to murder their unborn, I don't believe in it, but I'm not going to force other people to not be able to do something that they don't want to do or they want to do. But a lot of people intrude on other people like that. Me, I got other things to worry about. Me, the economy is one. That's about the only thing that I'm interested in. All these other little issues are nothing. And the border always gets brought up. Okay, 11 million illegal aliens are in our country. Do you think that 11 million, sending them back, is going to fix our economy? 11 million out of 350 million people in this country, 11 million are going to destroy our economy. Your arithmetic is very bad if you think so. But see, they won't break it down for you like I will and make it more sensible and for you to understand. They just mention shit and people come up with all kinds of crazy ass ideas of what they mean by it. Border crisis? We don't talk, but if you want to talk about the border crisis, she witnessed the whole thing. I was down there twice and did a live stream. And the only one that was with me was Mimi from England. And she watched the whole thing. She was right there with me. Me and her don't talk. She can't stand me anymore. But still, if she were to tell the truth, she goes, I didn't see shit. And that was down there when they said all these people were at the border trying to get in, and we had 50,000 truckers down in Eagle Pass. No, we didn't. If we had 50,000 truckers down there, you wouldn't have been able to move. I would not have been able to get into the truck stop to get fuel or food. And me, I'm standing down there yelling at everybody, saying, where are these motherfuckers? And then somebody tried to, oh, they're not there. I'm like, no, no, no. They said Eagle Pass. I'm right here. So they left the live stream because they didn't want to lose that argument because they already lost it because I'm standing right there. I told people, I'm like, you want to send them back? Okay, these people pick our fruits and vegetables out west. So we have fresh lettuce, fruits, and everything, all grown out west. Go ahead. You want to throw those people back over the border and they're going to have to hire Americans at minimum wage. Minimum wage. Okay, fine. You don't think that the price of them fruits and vegetables aren't going to skyrocket? Do you think that those farmers are going to swallow that cost to hire an American at minimum wage? You're bent, and you don't understand business. They have to hire Americans at minimum wage instead of those illegals. You're going to pay, I hope you enjoy spending $20 to $30 for that 5 pound sack of oranges. Yeah, that's what's the outcome's going to happen. And I try to explain it to people, and they don't want to understand. They just want to stick with that, how awful it is. They've been complaining about the border since I was a kid, and I'm 53 years old. Let's address the economy that doesn't work, that's dead. It's not going to grow, it's not going to get better. We've tried everything. And you want to address changing the economic system, now you're talking. Because every economic system in the history of humanity is born, evolves over time, and dies to replace by another one. Because the people who did that, who studied this sort of thing, economics, always believed that the human race can do better. That thought that we could do better, it helped us get out of feudalism, it helped us get out of slavery, it helped us get out of primitive tribalism. Reasonably to assume it would get us out of capitalism, unless you think that the history that you're living in, history is stopped. Okay. But you got to ask yourself, who wants those illegals coming over here? Employers. Why? They don't have to move to another country to get that cheap foreign labor. It's not the government that's causing this. It's actual human beings wanting the same thing as everybody else to provide a good, safe life for their families. These people aren't looking to get rich. Tammy, would you come up here on the panel if you're still here? I'd really appreciate it because I'd like to go inside here and get me another coffee. because I'm parking here. I was here a week and a half ago. This is where I got those not fine ass ribs. Ugh. Oh, that sucks. And me, I know a lot of those Mexicans. Make friends with them down there all the time. During the pandemic, there was the only gringo they saw wearing a Mexican flag mask. I did that to send a message, and a good one too. And those ones that wore those MAGA hats and Trump hats, they sat. Why? Because they can do that. He thought he was being funny and making a statement. Well, he was sitting there for hours. Sure, he beat me there by many hours because he passed me on the interstate. That driver did. He was there waiting about 4 hours, and I finally got there. I got unloaded right away, and my next load was right out of the same place, and they loaded me right back. And that guy was still sitting there trying to get unloaded. He wasn't even backed into a door yet, throwing a fit. I said, maybe you should take that freaking hat off. That might help you. You disrespect these Mexicans, you ain't going to go anywhere. They're going to have fun with you. So what's more important to you? Swallowing your pride and just take the freaking hat off and get unloaded and you'll be out of there and make your money? Or have such a big ego that you won't move for nobody? You know, you're going to be sitting there for a while. I wonder how long he sat there because I was in and out of there. I was unloaded and then reloaded. I was only there for maybe 45 minutes. They're like, you're not Chicano. I'm like, no, me. I can talk like a Mexican too. I'm like, hey, y'all unloaded me, man. I'll buy you all the cerveza. Put a smile on all their faces. That's the only Spanish word you really need to know is cerveza. You just made a lot of friends. Yeah, they were talking about that. They've never seen anybody wear a Mexican mask, and I still have it here in the truck. I'll have to find it. I know I'll find it when I clean out the truck when I sell it to get a new one. I might keep it. I'm not 100% sure yet. Yeah, illegal immigrants ain't going to solve your issues, and that's why it keeps getting brought up, so they don't have to address the real issue. Keep your mind off of what's really happening until we're in the middle of a disaster. How many people have to be thrown out of their home? How many tent cities do we need? Because tent cities didn't exist. That's something new, and that ought to tell everybody something. Because our economic system, capitalism, is no longer working for people. The mass majority of people in America, it's not working for. Me, I'm the owner of my own business. Yes, I do fairly well, knock on wood. But am I a capitalist? No, I'm not. I'm a self employed worker in a capitalist economic system. If I had people working for me, employees, then I would be a capitalist. But I don't. I could, I just don't want to because I have a conscience and my Catholic background just will not allow me to do something that I believe is to be evil, which I've been told is evil in the first place. Why? It exploits the massive people for the so few. And we've had capitalism over 300 years. It's time to move on. It's time to grow up and take that next step in our evolution to make things better for everybody and not just the so few and screw everybody else. And those people that are like that, you know, they're just worried about themselves. They'll try to out Jesus you and say how Christian they are. That's a nice load. Pays really good. It won't go on this week's payroll, but it will next week. Plus, just hope I have the hours to cover it. Yeah, me, I'm just here waiting until they, because I called them at 11 o'clock. They said they'll have the ribs ready, and I'm like, oh yeah, this place is known for their ribs. Best ribs in the world are made here at Skull, the bar and grill that they got inside the TA here. They cook them over a flame in a big fireplace. Yeah, it was like a week and a half ago. I was here the Friday night, Saturday morning, the week before the Halloween costume contest. Darren's live stream. I was here. Well, I haul a lot of loads for PepsiCo, but just to let you know, if you're able to look at their ledger and you find out a lot of these companies like Pepsi, Coca Cola, just about every company you name that is American, well, originally started to be American, they'll tell you they make more money over in China than they do here in the States. They care more about their interests over there than they do here. Because, again, it's a matter of mathematics. Here in the United States, we have just shy of 350 million people. Over in China, 1.5 billion. So that ought to tell you how big that market is compared to 350 million. They're 5 times our population. So that means they're going to make 5 times the income they would over here. It's getting with the reality of things and not a fantasy. I leave fantasies to, you know, the adult film industry and Disney World. Me, I prefer reality. I don't want to pretend I'm eating a bowl of ice cream, Rocky Road. I'd rather eat one than pretend that I am. Oh, the National Basketball Association? Yeah, in all Asian countries, especially the Philippines and North and South Korea. But everybody needs to grasp that reality. The majority of the population of the planet is located in China and India. Southeast Asia, that's where the majority of the population of the planet is. So, in business wise, that's a big market to get into. See here. Something tells me I've been here before, and this might be one of those places I was talking about in that live stream that has worker cooperatives and they rebuilt the whole freaking town and everybody works in the worker co-ops that they have there. That's our future, folks. And a lot of these people that lived in that town used to be Republicans, diehard Republicans. But once they became worker cooperative, they don't care less of either party. But it's going to be entertainment. That's the way I see it today. But like I said, I'm not expecting much. Not at all. Because since when did it ever change? Anything ever change for the better of the working class of this country? Never. And those supporters who support Trump are going to still, like the last 4 years he was in, they're going to be the same way now. They're going to be sitting there with their tongues hanging out, thinking that they're going to be well to do. It's not going to happen. He just says that to you just so you get your vote. There we go. Got my next strip sheet filled out. But I like that. I get people coming and going. Let's just find out what happens, folks. I mean, who would you rather listen to? Someone's being that paid hundreds of thousands of dollars just to tell you what you want to hear? Or do you want to hear reality and somebody who isn't getting paid a dime? There we go. But hey, at least I made it fun for everybody and entertaining when I was there because somebody joined in and did it with me. That was the funny part. He knew exactly what I was getting at when I did that. Ah. Why do people want to migrate here illegally? That's an easy question to answer. They wouldn't if our CIA and our intelligence groups keep interfering with Latin American countries, overthrowing or assassinating their leadership, and allowing uh, drug cartels and the leadership and the dirty people alike gain control over the country through the government. They gain control of their government, and they want if these people owe them money, they're going to kill them. They're not coming here necessarily just for jobs or whatever. They're coming here for safety because they want to live. Because we end up keep interfering in their leadership or their transfer of leadership or who gets elected. And if it's somebody our government don't like because they don't want to play ball economically, We demonize them, like Nicolas Maduro. Nicolas Maduro got reelected overwhelmingly. Why? Because he's Chavismo. And if you have a clear understanding of what goes on in Venezuela for the past 30 years, you would know this. But yet, the news is not going to tell you that. When Hugo Chavez became president of Venezuela, now mind you, he won 60% of the vote in a three-way race. He lifted 80% of that population out of extreme poverty, built hospitals, schools, homes for people. Why did he do that? Because that's what you should do for your people. And he told Chevron, that was sucking the oil out of their country, to take a hike because that was under their contract. They said this belongs to the Venezuelan people. They made money off the oil that they did, and the money that they made, they would buy food, drugs, or whatever medications that they needed for their people, and did for the people. And in the grocery stores, they were only allowed to charge this much for it for the people. Anything else that was considered a luxury, well, yeah, they told them you could charge whatever you wish. But when it comes to basic items for life, they made sure you charge next to nothing. Where you could get a free gasoline there. People from Colombia stopped the cocaine trade because they didn't have anybody to do it, process the coke anymore. No, people got tankers and trucks that barely ran, and they'd go over to Venezuela and fill them tankers up full of gas, which was for free, brought it back to Colombia, and some rich dude bought it off them, and they brought it back to the States and made a big profit. Obvious. But our government demonizes Venezuela because our three major oil companies complained about what they did by seizing the oil, which was theirs anyway from the get-go. So they demonized Hugo Chavez as a tyrant and all this and everything else, and all the American people believed it. Well, I'm telling you, if you're an American, that clever repartees is lost on people my age or older, because we've heard it all of our lives. We know it's bullshit. And they're not doing it for the greater good of all. They're only doing it for them and their corporate profits. That's all it's about. We have the greatest government money can buy. Nobody even comes close. That's not true. Yeah, everybody claims we have this great military. Okay. No, yeah, we do. Take the nuclear weapons that everybody has and put them to the side for a moment, and let's look at our military. We, after World War II, went into Korea, got our asses whipped. Went into Vietnam, a primitive country who barely had any kind of air force, any kind of arms, but we could not even beat the Vietnamese. We were there for what, 15, 20 years? Couldn't even defeat a small country like that. And everybody thinks it was us that defeated the Nazis in World War II. Yes and no. Had it not been for those Russians to put the pressure on the Eastern Front, our grandfathers wouldn't have made off Normandy Beach alive. They would have been slaughtered. It was Russia who defeated the Nazis. We helped. Because we only had, I think, 400,000 troops over there. Yeah, we lost just under 500,000 people in World War II. The Soviet Union lost 27 million. So who has every right to complain? And those Russians were our allies, just like China. China was our ally. But we got to have that enemy there. And the reason why the corporate leadership made sure that it was going to be Russia, because we don't want the Bolshevism to spread through the culture, because that's what Bolshevism is. And what they did was they had a crude form of what they want to call communism. Because Stalin stood up and said, this is communism. And if Lenin was still alive, he'd have been rolling over in his grave. He said, we haven't even achieved it yet, Stalin. But yet, they weren't communist. They were government capitalists. All they did is they took all the companies away from the private owners and put in government officials. Interesting change, but that don't change, with the worker. Sure, you took the companies away from the private individuals who own them and had the government come in. But it doesn't change the lives of the people underneath them. That's government capitalism. That's not communism. Communism is a word that comes from the word community, whereas a community, people get together and decide what to produce, how to produce, and what to do with the profits, what they produced as a community. Yeah, that's communism. And the first person that mentioned it, because communism didn't exist in the 19th century, was Karl Marx. But and yet Marxism was smashed here in America since the 1940s. It worked for Israel. Yeah, so far, but if we stop arming Israel, they're going to run out, and what's going to be left? A bunch of pissed off Muslims going to go in there and get rid of them. And you want to know why we support Israel? Because we have to. If you run for public office, go do that. Go try to run for public office. You'll find out, because I did it. I tried to run for mayor in my town. They slipped this little piece of paper and all the paperwork you got to fill out. And they slipped this one piece of paper in there saying that you in order to get campaign funds to run your campaign, you have to sign a pledge to Israel. And I'm like, this is treason in a way. This has nothing to do with my country. Why am I signing a pledge to another country to support it? Well, all of them signed it, and they're bound by that, and they have to support Israel regardless of what direction it's going, which is pretty bad right now. And Israel is not our friend. June 8th, 1967, the USS Liberty, look it up. You'll find a lot of survivors, sailors and Marines from that ship here on YT. And they'll tell you it was no accident. There is no excuse for what they did. They knew exactly what they were doing. People can run from that all they want, but the reality of it, it's either you support our troops or support Israel. You can't be both. Even though Americans try to pull it off so well, you can't be both. You support Israel, you're spitting in those Marines and sailors' faces. June 8th, 1967, the USS Liberty, the most highly decorated World War II ship in the fleet, damn near got sunk. See, when you get a full understanding of what's going on and not going by what you're being told and spoon-fed over the news, you find out there's a lot of things that are important that make a whole lot more sense. And you're like, no. Nope. And then someone will say, well, they give the excuse, well, that happened back then. I don't care how long ago it was. It happened. It never was addressed. and our government did absolutely nothing about it. If I was the admiral of the Sixth Fleet there and found out that that's what happened, I would have cut all communication to DC, and I would have leveled their fucking country. Every military target, anything that deals with the military, I would have destroyed and told the surrounding countries, have at it. We're not going to stop you. And I probably would have spent the rest of my life in Fort Leavenworth. Both sides are, not just the Democrats. Both sides are. What we're doing in Southeast Asia is constantly provoking China to get into a fight. China's not provoking us. China don't have their military spread all over the world like we do. The Chinese are far more humanistic than we'll ever be. Okay, they take 2 to 3 officials dressed in nice suits, send them to other countries, and say, you need some modern day Wi-Fi, telecommunications, you need some roads, you need some ports, and we'll do all this for free. And they do that all the time. The Chinese do. Of course, they're buying influence. Yes, but how do we do it in America? Oh, we don't talk to them at all. We just send in the military, send the tanks, bullets, and the guns, and the planes, and the bombs, and just level the place. So who's more humanistic here? Everything that is happening to us in this country isn't one side party or the other's party's fault. It's all of them. Our, like I said, our government was bought and paid for by the corporate leadership. That's why nothing improves for the working class or anything in this country. That's why AIG and Boeing and all these other companies get $1 billion bailouts that we have to pay for and they don't have to pay back. We can give a company like AIG $800 billion bailout, but we got all these people losing their homes and going to be homeless and living in a tent city. Do they get a bailout? Oh no, we can't do that. And then they want to know why people are screaming civil war. No, it's not civil war. It's revolution we need. You go to New York, there's a guy that owns a couple of buildings, empty buildings, and he made them into storage facilities. And on the side of one of the buildings is a big banner that said, the French aristocracy didn't see it coming either. All they're doing is trimming around the edges to stop us from wanting revolution. Because we almost had that revolution in 1933. We're in the Great Depression. Majority of Americans are out of work, starving. Very bad situation. Grapes of Wrath. I'm sure you probably read that book, Mice and Men. Yeah, that was all true of that era. So it took the Communist Party of the United States, 2 socialist parties of the United States, and the CIO, which is the union, Congress of Industrial Unions. It's now known as the AFL-CIO, approached Roosevelt and said this, Frank, we like you and we want to support you, but you're going to have to help the mass of American people or we're going to have a revolution. And Roosevelt knew all the rich people because he's a Roosevelt. They've always been a wealthy family. He knew all of them. He said, I'll see what I can do. So he met with the rich people and said, look, to all the Koch brothers, all the rich people at that time. He said, the government doesn't have any money. We got all these people out of work. We're not really collecting taxes because nobody's got any money. You do. So you better give me some of it, or these people are going to have a revolution in you, and they're going to make sure you don't have any money to give me. Most of them bought it, except for the forerunners of the Koch brothers. One of them is dead now, but most of them bought it. And Roosevelt was a man of his word. And he said to those the communists, the two socialist parties, and the CIO. Okay, we can do business here, but the agreement is this: you got to stop talking about revolution, or I can't make this happen. And what did he do? He hired 14 million Americans, government jobs, because he went on the radio and said, if the private corporations cannot hire you, I have no alternative as the president of the United States to create government jobs and hire you. So he did. 14 million people. He also created minimum wage, which we didn't have. He created Social Security, which we did not have. Social Security originally was paid for by taxing the rich. And here's how he did it. They gave him the money. And they were still the richest people in the world. But he approached Congress and he said, I propose we tax the rich 100% over a certain amount. Back then, its equivalent would be like $500,000 today. After that $500,000, you ain't getting any of it. It's going to the government to take care of the mass of people. So the Republicans were ballistic, and the Democrats, they were like, eh. So they come up with this. They reapproached Roosevelt and said, okay, how about 94%? And Roosevelt said, deal. So after that $500,000, any dollar made after that, they got to keep 6 cents. 94 cents of it went to the government to take care of Social Security. The government doesn't have any money. They took it from the rich. And that's what built the middle class in this country. It wasn't capitalism that did this. Capitalism takes credit for something it fought against. And that was called the New Deal. It was the deal that wasn't green yet. See, we're not taught about these important things in our school. That's why our education is defective in this country. This is important shit that we all should have known about the New Deal. Because that's what created the middle class. A communist party, two socialist parties, and the CIO. Had they not approached Roosevelt, nothing would have got done. But it did. And this is before World War II broke out. What really made us a powerhouse was, we were attacked in Pearl Harbor, but for the most part, nobody could really attack us unless we went to war with Canada or Mexico, which we didn't. We weren't being bombed on a daily basis like everybody in Europe and Russia and part of the Middle East there, the southeastern part of Europe. They were being bombed every day, especially the British. I wish Tammy Trott was here. She knows all about that stuff too. See, we didn't have to face all that. So all the competitors of the companies here in the United States, their competitors were destroyed. So after the war, who's going to reign supreme and be the economic power? Yep, you guessed it, the United States. England was the British sterling in the early 50s collapsed, and because England knew that they were a dying empire. Now it's our turn. We're the dying empire. And where is it going? It looks like it's going to China. Because in 1949, China was one of the most poorest countries in the world. 1949. But just to make it a round number, let's go with 1950, okay? 1950. In 70 years, they're rivaling the number one world power of the world. That's not a very long time. They did that very quickly. They lifted 80% of their population out of extreme poverty. I may not support exactly what they do over there, but you got to recognize they're doing something right. But see, if you aren't taken through it and just say a bunch of buzzwords and try to define it on your own, you're lost. But me, I take people through every detail. How do I know how to do this? Thank God I had the right economics professor when I went to college, Professor Richard Wolff. And I take an appreciation of what I have learned from him. and of Karl Marx, because I've taken that and I made it a part of me, and I make every decision going through every detail. Why do you think I've been in business for 15 years and being successful and still not be a capitalist? Yeah, I could have. I could have bought maybe about 5 to 6 trucks by now and hired some guys to drive them for me. But no, my my Catholic upbringing will not allow me to do that. I'm not going to exploit working people so I can get rich. I'm not going to do that. I'd rather do it on my own, because just keeping up with the Joneses and having a boat and have all this fancy stuff and everything and no one to share it with. And to me, it's a big waste of money and time. When am I ever going to enjoy that crap? That's why if you can't live under it, wear it, or eat it, it's useless. I learned that from my dad. He was a United States Marine. Eat it, wear it, or live under it is useless. And I'm not going to waste my money buying a camper, a boat, and all this, and just have it rot in my driveway and never hardly ever use it. Look, if I wanted to go boating, I'll rent one for the day. And if I lived near the lake, like some of my driver friends that have boats, well, yeah, they live near a lake. They have their boat parked on the dock in their backyard that's attached to the lake. But if I had something like that, well, then maybe I'd get a boat then, yes. But I don't. Because whenever JB and a lot of them that I know, his name is Jailbird. That's his road name. He lives up there, northeastern side of Toledo, right off the lake, Erie. And whenever he's home, if the weather's good, he hops in his boat and zips around the lake. Has a good time. He's had many a party on his boat. That's a nice boat he's got. It's got a toilet, a shower, I think a bedroom or two in it. I think it's 36 feet. It's pretty big. I almost bought one myself. I was looking at this 82-foot yacht. It had 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a living area with a bar. You could fit about 8 people at that bar, and it was 3 stories. And I thought about buying that. They wanted 14 grand for it. I almost bought it. I was about ready on the verge of going to the bank and saying, I'm going to buy this damn thing. And I'm like, no. And believe it or not, it was called the Pacemaker. And I was going to change the name of it to Defibrillator. Oh my God, that was hilarious. Yeah, I mean, you see all these people wasting their money, like that old story, Looking Buck, Texas by Waylon Jennings, one of my favorite old time country music. And see, I like old school country, not this new stuff. And that song explained it so well. Uh, we've been so busy keeping up with the Jones 4-car garage, and we're still building on. Maybe it's time we got back to the basics of love. That speaks volumes right there. What I'm talking about. And plus, I don't want no broad to love me because I can do all those things. Screw that. Take care of my responsibilities, yes. But buying all this crap and what car you have, I didn't care less about it. But this election is going to be entertaining. Everybody's going to be well entertained, just like watching the Super Bowl. And then there's going to be a little bit drama, especially if Trump don't win. There's going to be a lot of drama. A lot of the people that say that there's 3%ers, the nutcases, yeah, they're going to grab their gun and have a civil war. And it's like, okay, if civil war breaks out tomorrow, what are you going to do? Just go in your house and grab your gun and just start shooting people inexplicably? Who are you going to know who to shoot? Who are you going to know who the enemy is, if there is one? That's what people don't think about. Oh, there's going to be civil war. Okay, who are you going to shoot? It's not going to be this game where everybody dresses up on red, they're the enemy, and all of us good guys on this side is going to be blue. Those days have been long gone. Like the British wore redcoats, we wore blue and brown. Those days are long gone to identify who your enemy is. That's why if you ask, I don't know how old you are, maybe your parents or grandparents, about the ones that fought in Vietnam, they'll tell you we didn't know who the enemy was. They would see, an Asian wearing what they think it looks like pajamas and just shoot them inexplicably. They say they got to be NBC, and they're probably shooting a bunch of civilians. See, they don't know you don't know who's who. So you got a bunch of beer bellies with a bunch of high-powered weapons, and not a common sense God gave a mule with these weapons in public. And a lot of people are going to get killed for a stupid reason. And that's a more accurate statement that I can make. Because they are. A bunch of them that own those are a bunch of beer bellies. That's why January 6th is called the Beer Belly Purge. You look at them, the majority of them were. And me and all these other brotherhood around me that are in their trucks waiting on their next load or whatever, we're going to have to put up with this crap, whatever happens in public, because we're out here. If a bunch of morons decide to block the interstate with AR-15s or whatever, we're going to have to put up with that, and it affects our pocketbook and our timely delivery. Who feels sorry for us? Nobody, because nobody cares about truckers. We got to mention during the pandemic. Yes, a lot of us were out here and didn't go home for months. That was one of those. Truck drivers are heroes. Once the pandemic was over, they didn't even want to know us anymore. We're back to be known as trucker trash. Like, as long as it keeps paying me what I do, they can call me all the trucker trash they want. Oh, well, I'm surprised. It looks like it says I got 4 people in here. Nobody wants to come up to the panel, and it'd be a lot easier just to talk instead of typing, you know. But if you notice, I didn't talk much about politics. I'm talking about the economy. That's what everybody needs to focus on. Why? Because it affects everybody. People being gay, illegals, don't bother me. Abortion, it bothers a certain amount of people, not the mass majority of people. The stupid issues. I'm like this. I don't have a problem with gay people. If I'm not in on what they're doing in their bedroom, I could care less. I'm not in on it. They can have all the fun they want. I don't care what people do in their bedroom. Just stay out of mine. And believe me, there's not much going on in that. Except me there watching TV or on a live stream. That's about what's going on. And and I'm honest about it. Now, if I had my choice, yeah, I'd probably have like 2 dozen women all over the place in the bedroom doing all kinds of things. Hey, go do my laundry. You wash, you dry, and you fold it and press it. Yeah, there we go. That's the way to get things done. But to sit here, that's why I don't watch TV. I mean, I do, but not live TV. If the news pops on, I turn it to something else. MAGA, Trump. Oh well. Like I tell them, you really want that virus again? The Trump virus we got? No. Of course, the media is going to make it where people are glued because they need people to watch them so they could sell ad time, like in the Super Bowl. They're going to make people watch. That's why they're going to keep reporting it as a dead even race to keep everybody glued to the TV. Me, I'm like this. Don't even watch. Wait till this evening. Then I'd pop it on and then see what the results are. I'd flip through a few of the different ones, not just stick to just one. I'd flip to the other sources and see what they're saying and see which way it's going. Because if you are a real Trump supporter, now break it down in detail like I have in this past hour and 12 minutes I've been doing this live stream. What was it that he did in those 4 years he was president that was so great? There is one thing a couple of things I may hand to Trump that is true. He went to North Korea and talked to Kim Jong Un, and he showed everybody that the Russians are the Cold War ended back in '89. Okay, the Soviet Union hasn't existed. All right. Why is it that we're making Putin out to be like Stalin instead of going by what our news says? Why are we thinking that the Russians are evil? Well, we need to have that because we need to spend all that money on the military industrial complex so they can make a lot of money. They can care less if the facts are told or not, but they're going to try to keep the facts from you. This country was safer? How is that? How is it safer? After 9/11, there's a lot of holes in different fingers in that old whore, but it wasn't what everybody was told to believe it was. There's a lot of holes in the freaking story, but ever since 9/11, when was our country not safe? Who was wanting to invade the United States? Who was wanting to attack the United States? Who threatened to attack the United States? Nobody. In the past 4 years, who threatened the United States? Nobody. You don't have any country parking a large navy, a few hundred miles off off our coast. The border has been an argument since I was a kid. The reason why that they're complaining is a lot of racist white people that don't like Mexicans don't want them coming over. But they don't talk about the illegals that come from Europe and other countries. A better economy. Like I said earlier, they're known to be 11 illegal aliens in this country. 11 million is going to ruin an economy of 350 million. You're bent. Not going to happen. These issues are not, sending them back and getting rid of them is not going to fix nothing. Matter of fact, your fruits and vegetables are going to go skyrocket in price. That's what we'll be rewarded with. As I said, the MAGA supporters, what did Trump do in his 4 years that was so wonderful that they said? He didn't do anything. But one thing I did like that he visited China, he visited North Korea, and he visited Russia. And it is true. There was no war in the 4 years of him. There was war going on, but he didn't start any or get involved in any. We're really not involved, except that we just give funding to Ukraine to constantly get the Ukrainian male population slaughtered. And that's true. You go on to a lot of dating sites, and you'll find a lot of Ukrainian women en masse on those dating sites. This has already been talked about by many people. Yeah, the Ukrainian women were allowed to leave, but if you had a dick and balls and you were over the age of 18, you weren't leaving Ukraine. You were going to get a rifle and a tin hat, and you were going to fight and get slaughtered. That's the truth. And they are not winning. They're being slaughtered. And how long are we going to continue that bloodshed? Are we going to wait until the Ukrainians are totally wiped out, the ones that are left over there? Or just let it end the way we know it's going to end, the ones that know. It's going to end this way. It's going to get busted up just like Yugoslavia and Czechoslovakia did. And people don't understand why that happened in the first place. Well, it happened long before it even started. Putin was complaining to the West since 2014 because of the slaughter of the Ukrainian army on the people in the Donbass and the separatist areas. They were bombing and killing innocent civilians. And what are you going to do when somebody comes in your part of the country and tells you to stop speaking the language you're speaking? You tell them to go fuck off, wouldn't you? Yes, you would. Well, those people wanted the same respect. So instead of changing, they went ahead and just started bombing the shit out of these people. And Putin said enough. So he went in. Because if he was interested in conquering the Ukraine, it would already happened already, Holmes. It would have been over long ago. But he's not interested in that. Putin's just going through the motions and wait until Zelensky comes to the bargaining table. And let's go with let's focus on Zelensky. How did he become president? A comedian become president of Ukraine? Well, the United States overthrew the democratically elected president of Ukraine, Viktor Yanukovych. Yeah, we overthrew him and installed Zelensky as a puppet because Viktor Yanukovych wanted to be neutral. He wanted to keep Ukraine neutral. Well, we in the West didn't want to hear that. NATO didn't want to hear that because that's money. And who broke the treaty that NATO wouldn't move 1 inch east of a unified Germany? Who broke that treaty? Yeah, we did. And that was Bill Clinton that did that. Started taking up all the Baltic states, bringing them into NATO. And we're supposed to be the good guys, and the Russians are the bad guys. And yet we broke the treaty. No, I think it's the other way around. Safety in the economy. Well, safety, look, where's the threat? Is there any threat? No. Has there ever been a threat? Most likely not. Who's interested in conquering anybody? The only people that are interested in conquering is us. We're the one that has 800 military bases worldwide. We're the only country that does that. China is not interested in conquering. But if you want to talk Taiwan, yeah, if you know its history, which a lot of people do not, Taiwan is China. When you go to Taiwan, which I have many times, what languages speak? Mandarin mostly, and Cantonese. China. And then you got to go, okay, how was Taiwan founded? Well, that's real easy if you study the Chinese Revolution in 1949 when they ousted the emperor and got out from underneath feudalism because people were starving to death. Everybody was in extreme poverty except for the emperor. He ran to this island off the east coast of China, which is now known as Taiwan, and he lived there in exile. They're like, okay, he's there. We'll just leave him alone. We got what we want. And China hasn't looked back since. But Taiwan is a part of China. It's like us trying to get back to the Hawaiian Islands, which we stole from the natives there. But see, American people aren't told all this. And don't get me wrong, there are some times that China had stepped out of their bounds a little bit about the Spratly Islands and the Philippines, and like, yeah, we did stepped in and said, oh no, you don't. As soon as you turn off the news and stay away from it for a while and start thinking for yourself, and if you want news, go to a source outside the United States. Now, I have looked at the BBC and British uh, media, but I wouldn't trust it either. I go with others. France, country just like ours, has democracy and everything. But did you know that they currently have a communist president, a communist social president? Prime minister. Jean-Luc Mélenchon. He is replaced Macron. But the media over here in the States figured you don't need to know that. Why? Because they tried to make the retirement age, Macron changed the retirement age from 62 to 64. And they were like, oh, no, 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 no. That's why in the three-way race there in France, he came in dead last. And who is in control of their parliament? A bunch of communist socialists of many stripes. It was a coalition that got together. They didn't quite see eye to eye on everything, but they came together as a coalition and said, enough's enough. You're not going to take from the massive population like they do over here in the States. And the people that aren't affected by a certain decision, they're like, oh, nothing's going on. They're doing a wonderful job. Yeah, because you're not being affected by what the decisions that they're making yet. But it will eventually trickle down to you. And they know this. That's why, yeah, sure, a lot of people weren't directly affected by some decisions that were made over in France, but they knew which way the shit was rolling, and it's better to stop it now until it becomes a serious issue where it affects the majority of everybody. But here in the United States, we don't do that. It has to be personal for the person to actually get involved. Me, I got involved right away because I don't want it to affect me. No, I just hate the warmongering and the willingness to want to send other people's children to war and be slaughtered at the behest of their profits. That's all that war is about. The middle class and the poor are slaughtered at the behest of the rich folks. And that was an argument made over just a little over 100 years ago by Eugene Victor Debs that tried to run for president. And you know what? That speech he gave in Canton, Ohio, there was no rioting or violence or anything. But the speech he gave there got him 10 years in prison. If war is right, then let it be decided by the people. Because in all wars, none of them were ever decided by the people. None of them. And when you find out if it is decided by the people, they're not wanting to go to war. 7 in the morning, I deliver that load. 7 in the morning on the 8th. I'm going to the heart of this issue. Florida always becomes a freaking issue. Sure, a lot of things don't affect people from Florida, but you notice a lot of those folks aren't running to move to Florida to live anymore, do you? Why? Because they can't afford it. Because the New Deal that I mentioned to you earlier in 1933, it's all gone. It was all taken back. The only thing that exists is Social Security, and they've been trying to sunset it. So all the reforms we got that created the middle class in this country is all gone. That's why the middle class is one big reason why the middle class has been disappearing. Another one is they take all the good paying jobs, the corporate capitalists, and move them over to other countries for cheap foreign labor. Look at Detroit. Detroit was a city of 2.5 million people that worked in the auto industry. Everybody made a good living there and everything. And who decided what happened to Detroit if you go there today? It's a collapsed city. It's awful. Yeah. What caused that? The decision of 40 people on the boards of directors of the three major auto industries decided that. They decided to pack up and go to another country for cheap foreign labor. Now, when you put that many people out of work, what do you think happens to a town like that or a city? Yeah, it collapses. You're one of the ones that think Democratic Republic. Okay. You do know what a republic means, right? All a republic means is we're just not ruled by royalty. That's all that means. And if you think we're a full fledged democracy, you're meant because, yes, we have democracy, but in the workplace where it's important, there is no democracy. It's a dictatorship. You're told what to do. And if you don't, you're fired. Yes, you have the freedom to go to another employer that's going to treat you the same way. So if you freedom of choice is what you believe in, when we go to the grocery store, we can buy 48 delicious flavors of classic rice aroni. But when it comes to something important as political parties, we Americans know better. We don't want that crap. Two's enough. Wouldn't you think it should be the other way around? Yeah, in most European countries, they have 8 to 12 different political parties. But we don't have that crap here. Americans, we know better. Two's enough. A small enough number so that the corporate leaderships can spend as less money as possible to buy off the political system. You can't argue with it. Because I could have been one of those, you know, people like Elon Musk or Donald Trump, a small business owner, pretty wealthy, doing very well. I could have been one of those people, but I decided not to. My conscience and my Catholic upbringing will not allow me to do that. I'm not going to exploit a bunch of people to make me rich. These people that are millionaires, you think that they work so hard? Oh my God. No. They're rich because they have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, in case of Walmart, have millions of workers producing a big surplus for the Walton family. That's why one of the richest families in the world. And what does the Walton family do? Absolutely nothing. All they do is collect a giant surplus that those employees make. And that's when I learned the lesson. When you graduate from college or high school, you tell yourself that you're never going to work for an employer that's not going to pay you what you're worth. Oh, I got real bad news for you. That's never happened and it never will. That statement to yourself is your way of having to deal with the economic system in which you live. You are going to create a surplus anywhere anywhere between 100 to 1,000 times what you're being paid. Because if it doesn't, I will not hire you because it would be absurd. I hire you, I pay you $20 an hour to do whatever it is I want you to do. But in that hour, you're going to produce something that's going to yield to me more than $20 an hour. And in a lot of cases, what you produce and create is going to be worth a whole hell of a lot more than $20 an hour. That's why a lot of people that go to work, 9 to 5 or whatever, and when they leave there, they feel like vaguely ripped off. Yeah, if you feel ripped off, you finally got it. Well, you are correct. We had in feudalism, you have the feudal lords and the king, and then the serfs that did all the work and produced a big surplus. In slavery, you had the slaves make a vast surplus for the masters. Now, you could see what they did with the surplus that the masters got it. Down there in Louisiana and Mississippi and Alabama, you can still see those big plantation mansions that they built with the surplus that they got. In feudalism, like in France, they had feudalism. They had serfs that made a vast surplus that was collected by the feudal lords, and they built a palace at Versailles, which you as a tourist can go and marvel at it. Do you think the serfs that busted their ass in that day would have built a garden and castle like that for 3 people to walk through every fourth night? No, they wouldn't have done that because the serfs were starving to death. That's why the French finally had the revolution in 1789. So you got lords and serfs in feudalism, masters and slaves in slavery, because that's what we had until 1865 when we had our Civil War and we went to capitalism like everybody else did. Capitalism, you got employer, employee. Same dichotomy, just different titles. Marx's view in Das Kapital was we got to get rid of this dichotomy. And if you're an American and you believe in freedom of choice, let's give people the choice. Would you like to work in a top-down hierarchical meritocracy, which what we have en masse, or would you like to work in a democratic workplace? Let's give people the choice. Put it on the ballot. You know in what direction the majority of people are going to go. I'm going to go with the democratic one, naturally. But give them the choice. Would you want to work in a top-down hierarchical meritocracy, or would you like to work in a democratic workplace? There's a lot of people that have already answered that question, and I'm right in the middle of it. Here in Minnesota, most of Wisconsin and western Iowa is the recent one that caught on to this. It's called worker cooperative. There is no owner. Like the Green Bay Packers football team, it's community owned. Nobody owns it. The community does. That's why whenever there's a home game, most likely the entire population of Green Bay is at that game, unless they scalp their tickets to a fan. You, as a Green Bay Packer fan, are lucky to go to a game there at Green Bay and witness a home game. And here's why: because all the tickets are already spoken for. The only way you're going to get a ticket in that stadium is become friends or get to know somebody that lives in that town, and they sell the ticket to you. Nobody owns the Green Bay Packers. That football team will never move. It's impossible because it's community owned. Just like the worker cooperatives are around it. You go into Green Bay, you won't see anybody hocked up on meth. You won't see anybody homeless because everybody works. Their yards and their houses look very lovely. Yeah, Jay, you're really going to learn something from me. And I don't get paid to talk like this. I'm just sharing what I experienced and what I learned. About time I end the stream here, going and get those damn ribs. They're the best ribs in the world here. But all day long, if you want to capture what's going on in the election, just remember me and what I did at the polls Saturday as an early voter in the booth there. It's about as quiet as my live stream is right now. And all of a sudden you hear something from one of the booths go, ah, ah, and there's drumming. Everybody going, ooh, doo, 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 ah. I always make it eventful, and nobody should have got hurt or offended by that. The only people that would have known is you had to be a WWF fan in the 80s, and you would immediately know what I was getting at. Oh, that's the music Kamala used to come out, the headhunter giant. The Ugandan headhunter used to come out to the ring, too. Ah, yeah. Kamala, spelled the same way, pronounced different. Kamala Harris, and the wrestler that played the Ugandan headhunter giant Kamala, his real name was James Harris. Are they related? I probably not, but it is interesting. But y'all remember that today because I always try to make it eventful and had two old ladies that were lucky that they can pick up a Dutch oven with stew in it. That's how weak they are. Threw a big guy out like me. They didn't throw me out. They were just following me out the door. I was already headed to the door anyway. And me and the other guy were laughing because he joined in. There was only one guy that totally understood what that meant, and he died laughing coming out of the curtain. It was funny. He's like, "Was that you?" I'm like, "Yeah, that was me." He goes, "I would have never guessed anybody would have put that together or would have known that." But those who've known me for the past 4 or 5 years on here knew, yep, that's Sean. Doesn't surprise me. And if they didn't, you just learned something else more about me. I have probably one of the biggest sense of humor you could ever know. But I appreciate you guys coming to the live stream, listening to me. I wish people would have joined on the panel and engaged me and talked with me. But I'm giving information people could actually use and can learn from. And I hope that, yeah, I want you to look up things, Google it. Sometimes you'll get the right answer, sometimes you get opinion. That's why I wouldn't Google it. When you read it for yourself and you understand it, talk with other people who have read it, whatever the book is, you get a more full understanding of what you've been missing out in and what has been kept from you your whole life. But you guys have a good day. We'll find out what happens. Hopefully, we still have a country after today. You guys have a good day. Bye bye.